Hey, y'all, and welcome back to Native Soil. We continue season 5 as we reflect upon youth ministry. And here on the Zoom today, we are very blessed to welcome to Native Soil Andrea Nemesszeghy. Welcome to Native Soil, Andrea.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Did I do okay with your last name?
Yes, that was pretty good, actually. That's why I say it. That's how I say it.
Okay, good. I tried to focus in on that. I've been blessed to know you for a while, through being a priest and seeing you, serve in different capacities. But for people who don't know you, never met you, could you give everyone a little bit of your own background, kind of where you're from and your family, and just some general background?
Yes. My name is Andrea Nemesszeghy. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, but my parents were not Puerto Rican. They were university professors. My dad was from Hungary. That's where my last name comes from.
Okay.
And my mom was from Chile. And I had the privilege that my parents, my dad would do sabbaticals. So when I was a little girl, we lived 1 year in Belgium because he was teaching at Louvain, University of Louvain. And then another year, we lived in New Hampshire in Haverhill because he was teaching at Dartmouth. And then that kind of put me there, wanting to learn more about other cultures and things like that. So in high school, I lived 1 year in Belgium. I went to live with my aunt and uncles over there. So I spent 1 year in Chile. And then when I graduated from high school, of course, I wanted to learn more about my dad's heritage. So I went to Hungary for 6 months to learn the language. I'm not fluent in it. It's very hard. And then went back, did my undergraduate in Puerto Rico, University of Puerto Rico, my OS campus. And I wanted to go back to Hungary because I felt like I never got to experience the culture because I stayed with my uncles and it was like a shelter. So there I worked 2 years. I was with the ISEC Student Association and working for cultural understanding. And I was there for 2 years when I graduated from my bachelor's, and went back to Puerto Rico with the idea of finding a job, doing my master's. And I got this call from the mother of a friend of mine saying, "Hey, we have a job for you in Mobile, Alabama." And I'm like, I know where Alabama is. I don't know where Mobile is. So, and I just came with a backpack back in 2000, and I've been in Alabama ever since. So, and then, so I worked with the state for 10 years. Then
What were you doing for the state?
I was working at the Alabama School of Math and Science with the dorms. So,
okay.
Yeah, I was working with, I started as a hall advisor or hall director, and then I continued there. So I was there for 10 years, working with youth and the dorms and, hiring like discipline activities and everything that had to do with the youth. While I was doing that, I started attending South Alabama, doing my master's there. And then after 10 years, I did a rescheduling of the school and they changed it. So then I started working at a transportation company in Mobile, in theater. I said, like, I'm going to get back into business, that's what I studied. And then I got the offer to come here and work with the church at San Beat. So I came here and I've been here for the last 8 years. So, yeah.
That's quite the voyage to wind up in Montgomery, to have Hungarian parent, Chilean parent, grew up in Puerto Rico, spent time in Belgium and Hungary.
And Chile.
And Chile. When you were in Belgium, what language were you speaking?
Well, I was a little girl when I was in Belgium, but it was Flemish. So it was Flemish. So,
no kidding.
So I went with, and I guess I was a little girl, so I could understand it. It's very interesting when I was in Hungary and I have some friends, and they were Dutch and they were speaking. I was like, I can understand what you're saying, not everything, but like I can get the idea out of it. So I don't know, like maybe it's somewhere in my brain a little bit the Flemish. So, but right now I don't. So, but yeah.
And are your parents still living?
No, they're both deceased.
Okay.
So
Sorry to hear that. But did they kind of spend the rest of their days in Puerto Rico?
Yes, they both passed away. So yeah. And then I have two sisters that still live in Puerto Rico. And but all my other family is either in the States, in Hungary, in Chile, everywhere, all around the world. So
when's the last time you went to Hungary?
The last time I went to Hungary was in 2009. And we went to bury my dad. So he wanted to be buried over there in Hungary. So
right.
Yeah. So he had escaped Hungary when he was very young. So he wanted to be buried there. So.
Right. Back to his native soil, if you will.
Yeah.
What kind of a professor was he? What was he teaching?
Mathematics. So yeah, mathematics, yeah. So
and then what was your original degree in?
University of Puerto Rico is it's business administration and it's estudios organizacionales, like it's estudios organizacionales, so it's like organizational studies. It was back then when it was kind of like the HR before they had HR. It's organizational studies, because what it was you had to you will take, it was 144 credits to get that degree. So it was the one that required the most. And I started actually in accounting, but I hated it because kind of like I cannot see myself in an office all day long. So then the wise counselor over there said, "Hey, Andrea, I see you more like talking with people. You're more like people person. So you should do organizational studies." So yeah, so it was a little bit of everything in business. So
that's
very good degree. Yeah.
So your friend in Mobile, when they saw this position open up at Alabama School of Math and Science, they kind of thought it could be a good fit because of the HR aspect of like why do you think they thought of you, and why would you leave everything for that job? Like what was it about going to work at Alabama School of Math and Science that you're willing to leave everything?
Okay, so here's the thing. So the lady, Dr. Javier, she asked her son and says, "Hey, from your friends, this is what she told me. From your friends, who do you think would do a good job?" And he said, "Andrea would." So she called Puerto Rico and said, "We have a job for you." But I had just returned from Hungary. And I said, "Thank you very much, but I can't. I just got back." And I had told my parents, I said, "So I'm coming back. I'm going to be home for 3 weeks, but then you need to know I'm getting a job. So I don't know where I'll be because I'm going to look all over the island, and I'm going to also look in the United States." And because I was single, in the Hispanic, was okay, if you're coming back, you're going to be at home. And I said, "I'll be at home, but I'm going to look for a job. So you need to be conscious that I'm coming back, but I may be leaving again." And so she called again, and I said, "No, thank you. I just got back. I have this friend from Hungary visiting me, and the things like she wanted me to leave immediately, like the next day." And I said, "I cannot leave before my friend leaves." So that's would be completely rude. And then she called another time and said, "Well, when is your friend leaving? What about if you leave that day?" And I said, "Okay, if that happens, then I'll do it." But it was more like, I'll do it because you're asking and you're not taking no for an answer, and I have my friend. So, but I never thought she would call again because school was already starting. And that's why she did immediately. So, and when I hung up, my mom said, "Do you realize what you just did?" And I said, "Yeah, I know what I did." She says, "You gave your word. She calls again. You have to go. If she lets you go, leave that day." So then it happened. So I was in Cabo Rojo at the beach, staying at a friend's house with Hungarian friend, and we got a call, and I was back then. That was 2000, so like it was no cell phones and stuff like that. So anyway, and yeah, so I got the call, and it was my mom saying, "Hey, they call again. They have your flight ready, and you're leaving the same day your friend is." So I had to unpack and pack again, and I left the same day as my friend was leaving. But it was exactly 3 weeks after I got home. So
That's incredible.
So that's God, that's God. So
Were you
and
were you aware of that at the time? Like, did you feel the hand of the Lord working, like the timing and things? Were you like, okay, God, what are you up to? Or you kind of just, did it take you time to realize that?
it took me time to realize that. I did had prayed. My dad was not well in health, so I did had prayed about having a job where I could be around him. And I didn't realize it until later on that working over there, it was a 10-month job. So I would get to go home in the summer. So I would get to go home, be with my parents and help and stuff like that. So, but that's all when you see it inside, you see like, oh, wow, he was part of this. So
Yeah. And being attentive to that prayer and giving you space to go home and be with him.
yeah.
Were you pretty faithful growing up? Like, were you involved in youth ministry? Were you kind of into your faith up until that point in life?
I, like a lot of Catholics, I kind of lost my way in college.
Right.
All the way in high school, but I always, I never stopped going to mass, but I did stop having communion. I stopped taking communion. Right. In college, I just kind of like drifted a little bit away. And when I was in Hungary, it was harder for me to go. So I didn't go all the time. In Budapest, there was only one English mass. And sometimes I will try to go to that one. But I kind of drifted away in college.
Right.
And so when I came back and I went to Mobile, then I started going back. But it wasn't until 2004 when my grandmother passed away that I went back, and then I never stopped. So that kind of like impacted me emotionally and spiritually. And I said, no, I need to go back. And I did that. So, and she was who taught me how to pray the rosary. So,
oh, wow. So her example of faith and just that close connection you had and going and telling her goodbye kind of made you kind of think about the bigger picture and realize like, man, I really love and respect her. Like, this is kind of the kind of woman I want to be one day. Was that some of kind of what was going on?
Yeah, it was the love that I had for her. And so, but very, God is in everything. But for example, when I went back, and I was looking for a mass to go to, and I was already a student at University of South Alabama. And so, I had seen where they had been building the CSA, and it was already built. So that was the latest mass available. And I went to that mass. And when I entered that chapel, it reminded me so much of Chile and Puerto Rico. This is the church I grew up going, had a big crucifix, how they have it hanging. And then all the wood reminded me of the chapels or the churches that I would go in Chile. So that brought me like, it's kind of like I was home.
Right.
And that little chapel is very beautiful. And so then that's it. And I just came back. So I stepped out of the faith. And then when I was growing up in my town, San Germán, there was a youth group, and I saw my older siblings going to the youth group. But by the time I was old enough that I could go, it had stopped. They didn't have it anymore. Mm-hmm. So I got to attend any youth activities when I was a teenager. That's why I always remind the students here, like how blessed they are, and that you need to take advantage, and that it's not everybody has, have had that blessing in their lives growing up. So
Yeah.
so I was a late bloomer in those things. So
Right. Well, it's amazing, just like you said, the God's providence. Like you just come back from this funeral and you find your way to this Sacred Heart Chapel, which reminds you of home and that whole experience, and then kind of jumpstarts your faith. And I imagine, was Father Alex the chaplain there at the time?
yes, he was.
So from there, were you able to kind of become part of that student center, kind of be part of the ministry there, be part of the mass there?
Yeah, I started attending the mass, and I was a student, so I was a master's student. And I would go to like some of the activities that they did. But I worked at my office. My hours over there was from 3 p.m. until 11 p.m. So during the week, I couldn't really go to any of the activities.
Right.
So Sundays and then retreats. And so that was kind of like the only things I could go to. So I did participate, but I wasn't, in everything because of that. Like they had activities during the week and I just couldn't.
So how did you kind of fall into helping out with the youth group at St. Bede? Because like you said, you had the opportunity to come work at St. Bede. You had worked at Alabama School of Math and Science, with the teenagers there. How was that kind of connection made up at St. Bede? How did you start helping with that?
Well, Father Alex gave me a call and said, I need someone. I'm looking for someone that is bilingual and someone who would help with the youth. And he knew I had the 10 years experience on at the school.
Right.
And then so he knew I had dealt with youth and different. So because I was very involved at the school and I did a lot of things. And then sometimes, so he knew what I was doing over there. So he knew my involvement with the youth. So he knew I had that experience of working with youth, organizing things, dealing with discipline, guiding them, helping them. And then I was also bilingual. So, because Spanish is my first language.
Right.
And so anyway, so he said, will you be interested? Will you come for an interview? So, and I said, okay, I'll go. But I never thought I would be moving to Montgomery. So, because before I had only been here one time, and it was just to go to the Alabama Shakespeare Festival. So that was my experience in Montgomery. So, and I don't have any family. So it's kind of like, why would I move there? But I did. So here I am.
Why did you do it?
Well, I think it's all God. So when that happened, I immediately went and I asked Father Hellman to pray with me and to help me discern what should I do. I was also I asked the Little Sisters of the Poor to pray for me and then guide me and help and see what I need to do. And I came for the interview. Because even though I had experience with youth, it's kind of like I'm not my bachelor or I don't have a master's on theology or anything like that. It's just kind of like, I don't know what they're asking me. I don't know if I can do it. But when I came in, I had an interview it was Father Jose, Father Pat Aaronsberg, and Father Alex. So the three of them were the ones who interviewed me. And when they were talking and explaining what they needed to, then I was like, oh, I can do that. So, because the way they wanted to arrange here, so the priest is the youth minister. So he's the one in charge of the teaching. But what they need is they need the support. So that's why my title here is youth coordinator. So what I do is it's kind of like a behind the scene. Like I make sure that they have everything that they need so that they can go in there and teach and be, the ones to do the youth ministry. And I said, I can do that. That's, I have no problem with that. I can talk with the youth. I can talk with the parents. I can organize everything. And then they also wanted, help with the Hispanic community. And I said, well, I know Spanish, so I can help with that.
Right.
So it was something that I was going to be able to do. So,
right.
And I just surrendered to God, and I said, hey, this is what you want me to do, then make everything happen. And he did. So
it's amazing.
I mean, here I am.
First, you leave everything from Puerto Rico to come to Mobile, and then with your backpack. You just came here with one backpack.
Yep, I just came here with a backpack.
That's amazing. And then, the Lord's like, here's the next chapter, Andrea. Like, I want you to leave everything again and come to Montgomery. And what a powerful witness to those listening. I mean, I think the way you went about it is very helpful. Obviously, you sought, that your priest there to pray with you. You had the nuns pray for you. But you also, I like how practical it was of, you were thinking, okay, Lord, why do you want me to do this? Like, what do I have to offer? And in the interview, you're seeing, like, here's the gifts that God's given me, and here's the needs of this parish. And as you see that they match up, that gives you peace to say, okay, like, I can step forward into this because, I see the Lord has kind of arranged, this is a good fit. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I think it's just a wonderful witness of discernment, concretely, for those listening. Just some of the steps that you followed, I think, are very helpful. So you've been coordinating youth ministry at St. Bede for how long now?
I started 2014, so June 1st, 2014.
Okay, so it's about 8 years.
Yeah, 8 years.
What would you, like you said, obviously a big piece of Father Alex reaching out to is you're bilingual, and even beyond that, you just culturally, you have a very rich experience and sensitivity. And St. Bede is a pretty diverse parish, and I've visited your youth group a number of times. It's very diverse. What would you say has been kind of a unique challenge in coordinating that diverse of a group? What's been something difficult, but what would you say has been like the blessing of it as well? Like, kind of the special advantage that like a very diverse group of young people have?
I think with coordinating me being able to speak both languages is good, because then I can talk to the parents in Spanish.
Right.
But then I can also, and then I can talk to the youth in English. So I can tell you that my experience when I started here, I thought that the youth would want me to talk to them in Spanish, and I would talk to them in Spanish, and they would tell me like, no one that I talked to was in English. So the youth, English is their first language. So the Spanish is kind of like the language that they talk with the parents, but it's not like the language. So that was really good that I was fully bilingual, so I could do that transition very quickly. Okay, I can talk to you then in Spanish and English, and then I can talk, in Spanish, and I can talk to you in English and understand that. But being able to give the parents, I guess it's more like the peace, knowing like, oh, someone's there who really understands if I need to tell them something, what's going on. So that would be kind of like what it really helped. But it's, I'm sorry, what was the other question? So
the other one, I guess, would be, have you seen like a particular blessing from just a mixture of kids coming together from different backgrounds? Have you seen something kind of positive in their experience?
Yeah, because it's good to get to know everybody else, and it's good it's kind of like a safe environment. We create a safe environment where they can go in there,
right.
and it's not like they're going to be best friends if you're not best. How do I explain this? Like, it's good for them to come together and understand and realize, okay, these are my friends who are Catholic. They're part of the youth group, or these are my youth group friends who are Catholics. And then they come on from all these different schools, because we do have like 10 or 11 schools present in our youth group. Right. And it's a blessing to when they start doing activities or or they're they're laughing together or things like that. Because in a way, what we're teaching them is like that we all are daughters and sons of God, and it doesn't matter where you are. We're one family. So, and so, yeah, it is a blessing just to see them sometimes when when they're talking to each other, when they're doing an activity together, or even when we go on a retreat, how they interact. So, and it's not like, you shouldn't expect them all to become like the best friends forever and then do whatever together. Just like, you need to be aware that we're one faith, one family. You need to be aware that we're all daughters and sons of God. And for me, it's beautiful to see them together, and not being separated. So it is a blessing just to see them, to come together and they talk.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. And I know I've definitely seen the difference you've made. I know when you first came, Father Pat, Father Alex being there, but I remember them mentioning, a lot of Hispanic families, especially for like an overnight retreat or something, they'd be very kind of wary about letting their kids go with someone they don't know. But, for you to be able to talk to their parents and explain what's going on and just let them know exactly what you said, somebody who really understands them and their culture is going to be there with them. I remember Father Pat telling me like they're finally starting to let their kids come to youth group and to retreats and things because they felt comfortable. They realized it was that safe place. So definitely, just to affirm what you're saying, I could see it from my perspective too. You could kind of see that happen over time.
Yeah. And even now when we went to our summer, we went to Sudanville, Orlando. And so I did talk to a few of the parents, and they were asking me, well, are you going? Are you one of the chaperones? And I said, yes, I'm going. So it was kind of like, okay, I'll go.
Right.
Because I don't everything. So, but I'm like, okay, I'll go to this one. So,
how have you seen that as far as the kids and the youth groups? The youth group, I think, is a privileged place for all different kinds of people to come together, especially the Hispanic, like you said, because everybody is speaking English for the, in youth group. Have you seen some of that overflow into their family's life in the sense of, have you seen it kind of bring their families more into the mainstream of parish life, as far as feeling like, okay, we belong to this whole parish? Does that make sense?
yeah, because I mean, and it's an overall is when you let them know, when you let everybody know, hey, you are part of this parish. So, then they will feel more comfortable, attending anything. It's like we have a lot of more Hispanic families attending the English masses.
Right.
We have a lot of the youth attending different masses too. So I've seen it how they feel more like, oh, we're part of SMB. So I've seen that. So now you go and you can see Hispanic families,
Right.
which they're like families that belong to SMB. So for our parishioners, we are parishioners.
Yeah, it shouldn't be strange. It just to see parishioners at any mass.
Yeah.
Should be normal, but it's not always normal. Even in the Anglo, there's the people only go to vigil mass or only go to, but I think that's a real testament to what y'all are doing, is the fact that they feel comfortable enough if they can't make Spanish mass to go to any of the other masses offered.
Yeah.
And then go ahead.
And I've heard this, and I don't agree with it. Where they're like, oh no, but let's do something in Spanish for the kids so they can learn Spanish. And I said, I'm sorry, it's not my job to teach them Spanish. If you want culture, you learn that at home. And that's how my parents were. My dad was Hungarian, my mom was from Chile, but we were born and raised in Puerto Rico. So we learned the Puerto Rican traditions and from living there. And then, my parents will like include it and whatever. But at home, they also taught us our Hungarian traditions and our Chilean traditions. So so that's what the family is supposed to do. So, but not, I'm not here to teach your son in Spanish, you know. I'm here to teach your son this, how to follow the faith, how to live your faith, not the language. And they don't, most of them feel more comfortable speaking English. So then that's what I speak to them. So, but like talking about that, like at home, and I'm going back to like, we will celebrate, which it was for our advantage because we will celebrate San Nicolas, because in Europe you celebrate San Nicolas. So we would get always mention some gifts for San Nicolas. And then in Chile, you would celebrate Santa Claus, but it was El Niñito Jesús. It was baby Jesus who brings you. And then in Puerto Rico, you celebrate Three Kings. So then you get gifts again in Three Kings. So when we were growing up, we would get gifts 3 times because they wanted to celebrate, everything. So anyway, so that's just a fun fact.
Well, it's fun, but it's a great, I think, symbol of just every culture brings different gifts. Every culture brings different ways of expressing the faith, celebrating the faith, and you get them all together. It's like you can kind of learn all these different traditions. Like you said, you get 3 gifts, 3 times the gifts. So, I hear one of the fruits I feel like of your ministry too, I've heard in the past year or two in y'all's school, there's been a lot more Hispanic families that have gotten in that ministry. Would you say that's kind of part of the overall efforts, or how exactly did that come about?
That would be something you would need to ask Father Alex or Lori at the school.
Right.
Because I haven't really been involved with anything of that with the school.
Right.
So, the only thing that I do is like whenever family calls and says we're interested in attending or whatever, I just give them like, okay, this is what you need to do. This is who you need to contact. So I guide them in that way, but that would be a good question for Lori Gully, the principal of the school,
Right.
and then so.
No, that makes sense, and I think even what you did say is just letting people know the basics, just like how it works. Because I think a lot of times when people are in a new culture, they're not sure how things work. And so just the fact that you're there, the fact that the school has people who are bilingual, the fact that they can explain how, kind of like the youth group, like you're able to talk to the parents on the side and say, this is how it works. This is what we will do. To have a similar person to the school, I'm sure it's a lot of the same. That's kind of their purview, but it's a lot of the same, just kind of basic being available to people. So you've worked a lot with teenagers over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think's one of the biggest challenges facing teenagers today when it comes to them, really trying to follow Christ? What do you see as one of the biggest challenges?
I think, I would say like all the, how do I say in a nice way? All the garbage that they're getting from outside, I would say.
Right.
Let's put it, yeah. So, all of the media, all of the, music, and there's so much negativity out there, and everything is against, our faith. And then they put so much pressure also. Like, I don't remember having, when I was growing up, that much pressure about the grades and the college and the school and the sports and whatever. Yeah, we used to do all of that, but it wasn't as stressful as it is now. And
Right.
that from their faith, but also, the parents need to believe in their faith, because we observe and we learn from our parents. So, and that's something that I'm very grateful. My parents always went to mass, and I remember my dad, he would just, because he would just go and get ready and then just sit down and wait for us, because me and my mom and my sisters, it took us longer to get ready, but I have good memories about that. So I think that's one of the things, is like all the garbage that they're receiving from all that's around, and then all the pressure that they're getting it's making it hard.
Yeah.
So
no, that's a great insight. Yeah, and they can get so wrapped up in those things that they feel like they don't have time for prayer. They don't have time for church.
Mhm.
They don't have time to just develop a relationship with God, because there's so many things to accomplish. Or
all of this, because if not, you're not successful. It's like,
Right.
no, wait, no, you're first a daughter of God, and then He will guide you and help you, and then surrender will let you know. So, and like, for example, and my parents were professors, but I always remember it didn't matter what grade I brought home. My dad would say, "Did you learn?" Even when I brought an A, he would say, "Did you learn?" It's like, yes, okay, and that's a good grade. When I brought a B, learn, okay, that's a good grade. If I brought a C, did you learn? Yes, okay, that's a good grade.
Right.
So, so there are other things in life that are
Right.
are needed.
And I think yes.
So
Prayer, you said?
yeah, prayer, pray together. If you're having problems or something, like pray together.
Yes. Well, your own story, I think, is a great witness to kind of an antidote for, kids getting so stressed out about their future. They feel like, oh, there's this crushing burden on them. But, you do your part, but you pray and you ask God to lead the way. And you didn't plan for so many of the aspect. You did and you didn't. Just your job here in Mobile, and then your job at St. Bede. It's just God's providence. You obviously were applying yourself and putting yourself in a situation to, be ready for the future. But there was obviously something bigger than you at work and kind of your career path.
Yeah, something that I always think, and I think it's funny. I said, "Oh, this is God's humor," because I knew I had already stopped. I had already finished at South, and I knew I needed to find a church and register as a member. But I was still going to attending the CSA Sunday Mass, and I was praying, and I said, "Like, God, please guide me. Where should I register?" Because where I was leaving, and in Mobile, it was kind of like St. Ignatius and St. Dominic were both the same distance. So I was like, okay, so where should I? So please, God, guide me, help me. Where do I need to register, to continue my faith? So then I didn't even think about it. So then during that time when I was praying that, then I got this interview, and I came and I accepted, and I came, and it was all kind of like fast. Because it was kind of like, okay, if you're going to take it, you need to give your 2 weeks notice now, because we want you starting, in June 1st, because I came in an interview in May. And then when I came here, they said, oh, you have to register. So then I registered. It's kind of like, oh, okay, got to answer my question. Not what I thought, because I was asking, like, where should I register? Either St. Ignatius or something. And he says, nope, you're going to register at St. Bede. So there.
That's awesome. So, yeah, you're asking A or B, and he throws in C out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What about, do you see any particular challenges facing the Hispanic teenagers that you deal with? I think the two things that you mentioned of just the garbage from the outside world, the anxiety about future, apply for any young person today. Is there anything in particular you see that you try to be attentive to with the Hispanic teenagers?
Well, I don't think so. Something in specific. Now, I know that sometimes most of the Hispanics, their parents, the percentage of parents that are married is low, but I think that's changing. So it would all depend on what kind of dynamics you have in your youth group. Right. So, but sometimes they you'll have to see what's the family life like
Right.
at their home. But when I started, it was a bigger number of the students, their parents were not married. But that has changed. Or it's changing. They're
Right.
getting, so it would be that. It would be how has been the life at home, and what do
Right.
they know catechism about? What do they know about their faith?
Right.
There are and that's one of the things in the youth group you can have from. I don't have any of I don't have the sacraments to I know everything. So you just have to be aware about that. So it would be the level of catechism that they have. So
Right. No, that's good. And I think that's for people listening too. I know y'all made a concerted effort at St. B. That's been a big push to help support parents, to get their marriages blessed in the church and to understand the importance of that from a spiritual standpoint, from a sacramental standpoint. But I think that's a good thing for people listening, as like you said, one of the greatest things teenagers can see is like you had the blessing of seeing your parents pray together, see your parents be on the same team and love each other. And so kind of as we love our young people, to also be aware of what do we need to do to support their parents to be able to be those examples of the faith at home. So I think that's a point well made.
and then talk to them with the truth, because I remember I talked to this mom, and then she said, because their son was attending the youth group, and it was being taught, and everything was normal, like what you do with the youth. And I remember this mom saying like, oh, so and so asked me when we're going to get married, you know. So it was kind of like the kid was learning from the youth, and he was bringing it back home and
Right.
telling them, I'm going to do this. So, yeah. So as long as you speak the truth to but be aware that that's there, that they may not understand everything. So,
That's good.
that's one lesson, to have the priest being the minister, because they can reach the youth in a different way, in a blessing. So yeah. So I know it's unique. I know not all parishes can do that, but here that we've been able to do that for the last 8 years, it's a blessing. Because I work with Father Pat, with Father Sack, with Father Nicholas, and now with Father Connor. So that has been a blessing.
That's been a nice dynamic to work with each other.
Yeah.
How have you seen how, like, you've got to see a lot of kind of baby priests kind of grow up, kind of find themselves in that ministry. How have you seen, what has it been like for you to see these young priests minister to the kids, but also to see them grow? Have you kind of watched them kind of hone their skills? You can kind of see them understand pastorally how to minister.
Well, I started with Father Pat Ahrensberg, and he had already been here 3 years, I think. So he was already, part of it. So that was a good way for me to be introduced to and everything. So I learned a lot from him. But I think what I've been impressed by, and it's all God, is like from the beginning, I can see like how much they care, how much they want the best, how fatherly they therefore to the youth. So, do they grow and learn? Yes. But I would say that it's not that much growing like in the faith, because from the beginning, I'm very impressed by how much they are surrendering and giving to the youth. It's more like they're growing. What are the requirements from the archdiocese? What are the things we need to do and things like that? So how do we work with the budget? So it's more like behind the scenes that they learn. But no, I think we have been blessed with all the priests that have been here with the youth. So they've been always very open and very willingness to do that. So it has been for me. So.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I know I've loved to see these guys get ordained, and just to see your brother priest dive into that ministry. And you can see, as vocation director, I can see easily the impact that y'all are having on the youth and on their own relationship with Christ, their discernment of vocation. So it's a great tag team. It's a great dynamic to see. Well, Andrea, I think we might have to draw it to a close, but if you were going to have some soil for me to come and get from you one day, where do you think? The Lord has moved you around a lot of different places, but what soil would you want to put in the jar to kind of put on our set?
I would like to bring in a little bit from Puerto Rico, so
Right.
that's for sure. I would like to have a little bit from Chile, and a little bit from Hungary, which I don't know if I'll be able to do that. So, and then from Mobile. So, so that would be the places. So, and then I guess I'll add a little bit from Montgomery since I've been here 8 years. So, but it would be from the, but most likely it would be, I would get Puerto Rico, Mobile, and Montgomery. So.
I like that. Well, you've got some work to do to get all those soils together. But those are perfect. I think you have such a great story, and to have the soil of both of your parents' home country, the place where you were raised, but then also this place that the Lord has brought you to share your many gifts. I'm thankful for whatever reason the Lord brought you to our archdiocese, and you've served in Mobile, now Montgomery, and I'm thankful for your faith that you're able to get your backpack and leave everything to come be a part of our church, because I know that was no small act of faith. So appreciate you doing that, and for all that you continue to do, to minister. Yeah. Well, listen, I'd love to close just asking God's blessing over you, and then we'll close it out. In the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for our many blessings. We thank you for the gift of Andrea. Thank you for, in your providence, bringing her from Puerto Rico to be part of our native soil, to be part of our archdiocese. Just ask your special blessing and anointing on her and her family. Bless her ministry at St. Bede. Bless Father Alex, Father Connor, their whole parish, and just continue to sustain her and show her what's next and your plan for her life. We entrust her in a special way to you, Blessed Mother, and ask that you always be with her and walk with her. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now at the hour of our death. Amen. And through her powerful intercession, may God bless you, your family, your ministry, and all those listening, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, God bless y'all, and look forward to having you back here with us on Native Soil.